This podcast is for a mature audience and may be viewed as inappropriate or insensitive to some. Listener discretion is advised. The intention is to share conversation of like and unlike-minded individuals as they try to be the best them they can be in a life full of challenges, searching for love, acceptance, and positivity. Call 669-241-1422 and share yourself or catch up with SweetBaby Jay for an anonymous face-to-face interview. Feel free to call in with questions, stories, thoughts, or anything you would love to talk about and share. Nothing is off the table when talking sweet with SweetBaby Jay at 669-241-1422.
Great day, good sir. How are you?
I'm good.
Ladies and gents and ladies, once again, you are here talking sweet with SweetBaby Jay. As always, it's a no face, no case scenario. We have this young stallion here. Sir, would you like to share your name or not?
I'm going to make it anonymous.
That's always a beautiful thing. That's always a recommended choice, especially when you don't know what you're about to say. Or do you?
I do know a little bit, but I should know some of it.
I mean, it's your life, your journey. Let me ask, how has life treated you throughout the years?
Well, like anything else, it has its ups and downs. It has its valleys and dips, and it has highs and lows, and you just go through the flow as best you can.
What would you consider to be the high points of your life?
The high point of my life is me giving up drugs and putting my foot back in place with my life.
Beautiful.
What
was the drug of choice in those days?
Crack cocaine and alcohol.
Crack cocaine, really?
Yeah, really. Yes, most people are shocked when they hear that part of me.
Well, no. Well, the reason why my shock is not really about the drug of choice. Let me ask you, how old are you?
I'm 58.
58. Okay, so the reason why I say that is because, so you were growing up during the crack era.
That's correct.
Wow. How did you get stuck?
I got caught in it.
As I was about to ask, and how did you get caught into that?
Well, I had just got out of the military, and when I was in the military, of course, you get tested. So I was drug and clear and free. And I had came back to New York, and that happened to be the big thing at the moment. And I made the mistake of trying it and getting hooked on it.
When you say you made the mistake of trying it, this is I'm glad we're having this conversation, because when I grew up during the crack era as well, but I was also a kid during those days. And I never understood, how is it that people see others not just get hooked, but also what they end up looking like or doing for the drug. Did you not see this? Like, what made you do it?
Well, I knew it was a derivative of cocaine, and cocaine was like, what's the best way I can describe it? The dream drug. Like all people that were in the happening, that was their drug of choice. Me being experimental and trying to be cool and what have you, I tried it and discovered that, funny enough, it's the perfect drug, because once you're hooked, it makes you it leaves you with the desire to have more, to chase that drug. And that's what was the downfall of me at that time.
I always hear people say that. You said you were chasing that high.
Right.
Now, I always hear people say that it's always a journey to chase that original high. Was that the case?
That's the case.
Wow. And that was with cocaine,
exactly
though.
That's with cocaine. And so what happens with cocaine is that you sniff it. However, with crack cocaine, you smoke it, which gets into the bloodstream a lot faster. So you get the high a lot quicker and a lot stronger. And once you've gotten that desire, from what I understand, chemically, it opens up a bunch of endorphins, which creates a very high and a very low. So in other words, you get high really, really high, and then you hit the low, so you're looking to get high to bring you back up to that level again.
Well, I've heard stories of people, like, they would get high, and I guess they're hitting that low, but they will really smoke through thousands of dollars. I mean, literally smoke their house away, smoke their whole everything away.
Well, believe me, if I had enough cash flow, I'd be dead.
Really?
Yeah, without a doubt. There's no doubt. That's what keeps me away from it, is the fact knowing that it put me in a sense of I cannot stop myself. And if I could, I would smoke myself into a heart attack.
Wow. So how did you stop? What made you stop, and how did you actually go through with stopping?
Oh, well, what made me stop is the lows. The high. What happened is the high highs are very high, but the low lows also keep getting lower and lower and lower. And then slowly but surely, I was doing things that I couldn't even imagine myself doing to this day.
Oh my!
And then there came to a point that I got so depressed and so beating up on myself, like, God, how did I let myself get here? That one day I decided to pick myself up and go to a detox.
So detox works?
I wouldn't say it works. I can say it works for me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next. I hear a lot of people that end up in detox time and time again. And I guess it's...
I wasn't one of those.
One time? One and done?
One and done.
You never went back to it? You've never tried, sampled, slipped, nothing?
Well, I did have a relapse. And let's see, I spent 5 years clean, and I had a relapse. It lasted about a year, and then I stopped again, and I haven't looked back since.
You've relapsed, and you're sure that's not a place where you ever want to be again?
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind. Are you kidding me? Here's the best way to describe it. Crack cocaine leaves you with such a sense of paranoia that you start hallucinating and believing things are there that are not there, and I never, ever want to experience that again.
Were you married with kids when you were going through this? These stages of...
The first time I was divorced. I was newly single. The second time I had already had a child. It's kind of really foggy because it's been so long. Where was I at that time of life? I had my son. I left this set, and I was back at the Earl Union. I was working, doing well. It was during the job that I actually went to detox the second time, and that was the last time that I can remember.
You said you went to another state, and you came back to Earl Union. Were you using while you were in the other state and in Earl Union? The
funny thing was, I had left Earl Union. This is when I first was introduced to crack cocaine. I had left Earl Union to go to run away. In other words, get away from it.
Okay.
When I got away from it, I went ahead and got married, and I stayed away from it for many years. And then I got divorced and came back up to Earl Union and started my rounds all over again. And that's when I went to detox.
Did your wife know that you had this drug issue in the past?
My first wife, yes.
And did she?
Yes, she did. And that was she's the one that sent for me to come to this.
Oh, so she was really trying to help you through the process.
Right. And the thing was that what I learned the hard way was the problems I had with me in Earl Union, I also took them with me to discuss that it wasn't the drug itself, it was me. What was me as a person?
What were your biggest issues as a person that you felt was
ego?
Oh,
ego. I was out of control with my ego. I really thought I was in charge of my life. Like I was the end all and be all of myself, that I knew what needed to be done. And really, I hadn't taken a deeper, harder look at myself as to what I needed to do to grow up.
That's deep. That is very, very deep. And it's really deep that you could even notice that about yourself and even admit it. Some people can't say that about themselves, that their ego is their biggest issue.
Well, I can't say it came easy. It took a lot of tears, a lot of pain, a lot of emotional pain, and owning up to my frailties and seeing them for what they were and what they are and what they still can be. No human being to me is perfect, so I still have to see myself by the reactions I get from people, because the reactions I get from people is really a reflection of myself.
What do you mean?
Well, it's like, let's say we're two people just conversating with each other, and I say something off the cuff, and I get a reaction from you, and the reaction is unpleasant.
Okay.
And I see that in you. And the reason it's unpleasant is because it's a reflection of what's unpleasant in myself. That's the only reason I can recognize it, because I see it in you. So that takes me where I got to take the time to really take an inventory of that. It's not to say that I'm responsible for your reactions and for how you feel, but I am responsible for what I do to cause that reaction.
And managing your triggers.
Correct.
Wow. You know, we started this conversation off about what was the highest moment. What was the lowest? Gosh dang. Like shit. That's where we starting? All right. What was the lowest? Gosh. Rewind.
Wow. I think think the lowest moment, in all truth, is when I was stealing money from my own family and not giving two shits of the consequences of my actions and what I had gone to. You know, I was stealing. I was waking up and just trying to figure out how can I keep this money flow going so I can continue my drug habit going, so I can continue this high. And people were disrespecting me because I was disrespecting myself. You know, that was definitely a low.
So when you say people were disrespecting you, I could only imagine family members were looking at you like, yo, chill. Like what was the biggest form of disrespect that you felt during those days? And how did you respond to it knowing you were doing what you were doing?
Well, I guess the biggest form of disrespect was the kids that grew up around my neighborhood knew I was a crackhead. And they were treating me as if though my life was worth less than anything that they know. I can remember I bought a $3 crack bottle one time, and I gave the guy $2. He gave me the bottle, and I owed him $1. And for that $1, he was ready to bust my head open. And this was a young kid from my neighborhood who I was an adult and he was a child, but he's the one that sold it to me.
Wow.
And I was getting ready to get my head busted for over $1.
And you
that was an indication to me.
And you were actually willing to accept the ass whooping for the crack.
That's correct.
Sheesh. Wow.
Yeah. And that's just one instance. I got a whole lot more, but they kind of still make me feel a little hurt behind it.
I could only imagine. I mean, heck, I was going to ask you some questions that was going to really make you feel hurt, but I don't want to trigger anything. Well, because
I'm pretty good with the triggers.
Well, the thing is that over the years, I've heard some of the things that people have done for drugs, and that is one situation. What was the worst thing that you ever had to do?
Ooh, well, let's see. I got to give that one some thought. One of the worst things that I had to do.
I was going to say the top three, but I would say the bottom three.
Well, in all honesty, and I guess I say this so that I'm hoping it might enlighten someone else should they feel themselves in that predicament, is I compromised myself sexually in areas that I don't care to talk about, but that's when I know I went beyond what I would normally think is okay. That's the best way to describe it. It's another way of saying.
I think I could read between the lines.
Frame of mind, yeah. In my frame of mind now, there is no way in all hell that I would ever compromise myself to that low ever.
Right. Give me two more, brother.
And it shames me to think about it. Another one. Let's see. No, that one sums it up. That's the one that really hits my gut.
I can only imagine. So. When, as I said, I grew up in the crack days, I knew many people that sold and dealt, on all different levels. And when I hear of the things that people would do sexually or to get the drug, and I never understood how is it that dealers would compromise themselves with someone that would even do something like that? Or how is it? I can understand the person that wants the high because they're clearly not in control of the situation. But I just never understood.
I would guess from the dealer's perspective, I can't speak for them because I could never be a dealer. That's one thing that's for sure. Because my product would have sold out instantly on myself.
Never get high on your own supply.
That's correct. But I guess from the dealer's perspective, it was the money grab. No matter what, it's the money grab. And I've watched a couple of documentaries about it, and I can't remember any of them off the top. But on Netflix, there's a few. And it showed what it was about in the 80s, and I was just like, wow, I lived through that, and it's exactly as they tell it. They were pretty raw and clear about it.
Was that the one named Crack on Netflix?
I think it was.
I saw that.
I think it was.
It was deep.
And it described it quite clearly. You had this money flow of indiscriminately. You had kids making money hand over fist, what would take someone years to get, and they were getting away with it until authorities started cracking down on it. But for a while, it was a free-for-all.
What neighborhood did you live in back then?
I was in the South Bronx.
That's why I ask. I think of documentaries, the Bronx is burning. I was afraid to go to the Bronx. I actually never really went to the Bronx until I was an adult because of the images that were painted for me by people, my family members about going to, and I had family that lived in the South Bronx, and other than seeing them, I never went to the Bronx. But the Bronx is actually pretty damn beautiful.
It is now.
Now.
It is now.
We can say that about Harlem, parts of Brooklyn.
Sure you can. I remember the last place that crack really took over was Washington Heights, and that turned around and came back up.
Big time. I've been in so many shootouts. Not that I was shooting, but just sitting in the car. My parents had a business in Brooklyn, and we're sitting in the car, and guys just ran by the car shooting. I never thought that I could fit underneath a dashboard in a car. Wild times, brother. Those days were wild. They've shot out my mother's store window so many times just because people were running by. But
wow.
Sheesh, yeah, it's wild. Like what people were doing for drugs those days.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm a survivor of it. Many of my friends, I can count on one hand how many of them are left. As a matter of fact, my best friend, the best friend I ever had, he got even worse. He was crack, and then heroin got to him, and he OD'd.
Wow.
Yeah, it took him out. That was pretty devastating. It's been about 10 years since the incident with him.
So you say that it was always about chasing that high. What made you not go to heroin or those type of drugs?
But listen, if crack could do that to me, it was just in my mind. It was like I don't need to add to this mess anything more. I'm already messy as it is, and like I said, the paranoia was ridiculous, extremely ridiculous.
Wow.
I mean, it had me hiding in the closet,
Get out,
peeking through the window sills, like I was thinking the police were always chasing me. And if you're talking to other crack addicts or former crack addicts, they'll tell you messages of paranoia that are just unbelievable. And it will leave them frozen with fear.
Wow. Just the thought of it has me frozen in fear right now. I'm literally, I couldn't even move. Like just the thought of being that paranoid about just life.
And it's God's truth. I mean, that paranoia, in other words, it's what keeps me clean. It really, really does. So I sit there and I go, I never, ever want to feel that ever again.
Did your son know about your past? Or does your son?
He knows. He does know, but he was never involved with me during that time, fortunately.
So he
is aware that I did have a problem.
So him not being involved with you, have he ever looked at you? Because where I'm going with this is that you were strung out on drugs and you had a son.
Right.
Has he ever held that against you for not being in his life for that time? Or
actually, he has a high respect for me.
As he should.
Yeah, he really does, because I told him about my situation, and I also explained to him the actions that I take towards him because of it. So at one time, like I even gave up alcohol, but at one time I was drinking beer, and when he was staying with me, because he spent the summers with me, I made sure he would never, ever get my beer out of the refrigerator for me. Or even if the beer was across the room from me, I would never say to him, hey, would you mind passing me that beer over there? He would go, in other words, he would come in and goes, Dad, you need me to pass me the beer? I told him, no, I don't ever want you to pass me a beer. I don't ever want you to pass me my cigarettes, my beer. I don't want you to ever pass to me any poisons that I am taking. And he asked me years later, he said, why did you do that? I said, because I don't want you to figure it's okay to pass this on to someone else.
Wow.
In other words, these are my vices. There's no way I'm going to have you enabling me to keep my vices going. I take my own vices and I take care of my business, and I don't need no help in killing myself. Strangely
enough, I hear this story. I'm glad you're keeping it anonymous, because we don't need everybody when you return to work or they're like, boy, I heard about. But I hear this, and to me personally, I hear this as a story of victory.
Thanks.
It's a story of victory because, as you said, so many that you've known did not make it, but you're here.
Yeah.
You're here. You are definitely on a mission, and it's a beautiful thing.
You know how they say you take everything with a grain of salt, because nothing's guaranteed.
No.
And that's what I mean by that. Is that I'm not guaranteed either. Like, what's the saying that I like to use? Is I'm as far away from the last time I used to as close as I can use. In other words, the only thing keeping me apart is my memory. But that doesn't mean that I am cured, because I am not.
I feel you. It's a journey.
Exactly.
It's a journey.
It's a lifelong journey. And I am part of a program still to this day and we don't guarantee anything.
Nice. Well,
we don't guarantee anything.
I think
we
when you start
take it a day at a time.
When you start talking about guarantees, I think you start actually going back to what you said is in the ego. People that with very high egos make guarantees.
Right.
You know, when you're humbled, you know that there is always a way to slip. And with knowing that, I would say there's also that determination to not slip.
Yes. Well, just as you mentioned, humbling takes practice, just like anything else. And keeping the ego at check, it takes practice. But because it's so ingrained into the individual that I am, I have to keep it at bay by exposing it.
Dope.
And the only way I can expose it is tell my tragedy and find someone who I can tell my secrets to, so my secrets don't end up eating me alive, because that's what will put me right back into the cycle.
Hey, listen, man, that's what we have Talkin Sweet here. Nothing's ever off the table. I tell everyone, you can tell me your deepest, darkest secrets. It stays between your mouth, my ears, and everyone that's listening. And that's why you stay anonymous. You have the ability to share with no judgment.
Well, that's a promising thing, but still, we keep some things close to the vest.
Yeah, always.
Only because of insecurities, and you don't want to expose too much, because
you never know.
I believe, you just never know who might. And also, sometimes when you give somebody your secrets, they and I'm not saying you personally.
Yeah, they use it as ammo. I know exactly where you're going.
Yeah, exactly.
Trust me.
They use it as a jackhammer and don't realize, guess what? The person that's really being hurt here is not me, but you.
Well,
because then you're exposing your weaknesses.
So
if I expose my secrets to you and you go ahead and use it against me.
So this is the thing when we talk about egos and insecurities. If you show me a person that has no insecurities, I will show you a liar.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Because we all have insecurities in some way, shape, or form. It's really about how we maneuver through them, and how you're going about it is a very honest and bold way.
Well, thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Don't thank me, brother. It's you. I'm just here enjoying the journey that you're telling me about. It's wild.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wondered about people that indulge in this and where they've come from and how they got there and what they've done while they were, going through it and how they've gotten through it. And you said your wife. Does your wife know about your past?
Oh yeah, definitely. She knows more secrets than I'd care to tell. But she wasn't a part of it. My wife, we've been together now 18 years. She was involved with me when I had a relapse, but she also pulled out of it along with me.
Oh, so she was at one point. She was using as well one time.
Yes, at one point she was.
Wow. And you guys are each other's support system. You guys are the crutch for one another.
We are, but we also have our separate support systems.
What is the biggest support?
And that's my biggest support. Ooh, that's a good question. I would divvy that up, because my biggest support is others who have been through the same journey I'm on. And we share our stories together, and we encourage others who are just starting to come into this journey to join in, that we're not trying to recruit you. All we're trying to do is let you know that we made it through, and so can you. That's my biggest support. It's almost like a brotherhood.
I was at one point doing group therapy, and for me personally, because you know how everybody goes through things is different, and everyone's journey is their own. But I at one point was going through a group therapy after my tour in Iraq, and I had to stop. It was one incredibly emotional, where your highs and lows it was just way too much for me, and I personally couldn't deal. It's, as you said, the ego, the insecurities, dealing with those things are a lot to deal with. And it really does take a lot out of a person.
It's just, I would say it's similar, because it is a group therapy. We talk about our stories, and sometimes, you're right. Some of those stories can hit your gut pretty hard. The hardest enemy you face, I believe, is yourself and the lies that you tell yourself. I even have an acronym for it. I call it denial. And what it is don't even notice I am lying.
Wow.
And that's I try to live by that.
There was a young lady that I used to date way back when, and she used to live with a lot of her other family members. And I would go by her house and they would all be there. It would get wild really quick. And she told me how she used to sleep with her jewelry in her underwear because of one of her aunts would always try to steal her jewelry.
Wow.
And that was never my reality growing up. But I've been around that. It wasn't like my family reality, but I've been around people that it was their reality. So I understand that. I definitely understand. And then the thing was that...
The reason I'm laughing.
What was that?
I don't mean to cut you off. The reason I'm laughing is that reminds me of the typical addict behavior. Here's the typical addict. The typical addict will steal $50 from you. You'll sit there and you go, damn, I lost $50. They'll help you look for it.
Did you look under the sofa? Wow.
Meanwhile, they've got your $50. Yeah.
So I would imagine that's something that you've entertained a few times.
Yes, that's why when you told me the story of her aunt, and I'm going, oh, wow. Yeah.
Exactly. It was wild.
That's not very typical of the behavior.
So her aunt was also, one would describe as a functional drug addict. Went to work. She was actually dating a doctor. Went to work and everything and was still a full-on drug addict.
Yeah, that's typical.
How do you function going to work as a professional, staying sober, or was that ever your case where you were working and in that life and then getting off of work and I guess getting high or before work? I really don't know. Was that ever your life?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. For a while, it was. It lasted about 2 months where I was actually getting high, going to work. As soon as I get off of work, getting high, and I was calling in a lot of sick days and coming up with some of the most wildest excuses for being out.
Give me your wildest. I need to hear the wildest.
Well, not necessarily the wildest thing, because I would say I had enough sensibility that I couldn't make the story too outrageous.
Oh, okay. But, like, an elephant sat on my car.
Yeah, right. But I did come up with that. My boss even looked at me and goes, really, that's the best you could come up with?
Oh,
and what I told him was, the lights had got cut off at my house, and I need to stay there for them to cut it back on because I need to be home when they cut it back on so that the pilot light doesn't accidentally get a static discharge from and cause a fire because I did not turn off the gas. He goes, how does electricity and gas go together? I don't know, but this is what I do.
I mean, hey, listen, you might catch somebody with that. Wow. I guess you were trying to be creative.
I did get the day off, but he still did crack on me and go, really? That's the story you got?
Wow. So how did your managers or bosses did they notice that there was an issue? Did they ever say anything to you?
They asked me to go to detox.
Wow. So they realized.
They did. Yeah. But they love me so much that they really said that they didn't directly tell me to go to detox, but they told me to go to detox.
And did you take their word?
I heeded their advice. I did.
So when you're working and you have to go to detox, I'm not sure, is detox something that you sleep away at, or is it like a 9 to 5?
Yeah, you do. It depends. They have what they call 7 days and 3 days. I was given the 3 day, and you go in there, you go into a hospital setting. They give you, if I remember what's the name of this drug, I think it's called Librium, which is a nice way of saying alcohol in pill form. Because when you go to detox, generally it's because of alcohol. And what the pill does is it keeps you sedated because you don't want to just abruptly cut off somebody from alcohol because they can go into shock. So they have to give it to you and then wean you off. It takes about 3 days. And then from the 3 days, they send you to rehab.
Oh, so that's not even rehab. That's like rehab 101.
Something like that. The detox, you go to rehab, and you go to rehab after work. Like you go in and twice a week, go into rehab. They'll test you. You do a group therapy session, and you got people from all different cross sections of different types of jobs.
So,
and do a group therapy.
When you were doing this, did the job just say, "Listen, we know where he's at. You know, he's off," or like, did you have to use vacation time, or can they even terminate you once they know?
No. They could terminate you, but if you claim you have a problem, they sort of say, okay, we're going to try to in-house this. In other words, let you go to detox, let you go to rehab, and hopefully get your life together.
So they are somewhat supportive.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
Wow. do you ever notice that you with your wife that something may trigger her to slip back into that life, or does she ever notice something in you and you guys have to talk each other off the ladder?
It's never come to that, surprisingly, because for some reason, I mean, speaking for myself, I know where I'm at. I can't say where she's at, but we're pretty open of what we go through on our daily lives, and if we're tightened up with emotions, we know that's a big trigger. So we tend to talk through a lot of the things, and that's why we have separate support groups.
Yeah, because you might be a damn trigger. You pissing her to fall. It's just life and relationships. They are stressful.
That's correct. Yeah. Very much so.
Trust me, I know. Oh, do I know? Oh, man, bro. Wow. I mean, we started off, we went 0 to 1,000 real quick.
Well,
I like it.
Well, I'm glad I'm here to share my story, and hopefully it helps me, because it helps me rewind my tape and keeps me sort of feeling fresh of where my life has been and where I'm at now. And I'm hoping that whoever's listening can also reflect that, hey, listen, believe it or not, if it hasn't happened to you, more glory to life. And if it is happening to you, there is an outlet. There's different ways of going about it. We're all trying to live life on life's terms. But easy does it is one of the main things I like to say. And if you're caught in that grip, when you're hitting a low, you tend to beat yourself up. And I say to others, if you're going to beat yourself up, let go of the bat and pick up a feather.
True that.
Because everybody has a story. It's as simple as that. And believe me, you're not alone. It's not unique to yourself. Other people have been where you've been, so you might want to find out what's going on.
Everyone's vices are different. You know, there was a gentleman that I used to work with who later found out he had a big drug problem, but we were really cool. And one day he came to work. He's like, "Yo, man, I met these 2 girls yesterday, and you know, one of them showed me she had no underwear on." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Yeah, man, we had all kinds of fun. I was doing this, I was doing that." I'm like, okay. Then he says, "But man, I got this burning sensation." I'm like, shouldn't you be telling the doctor this? Like, what in the hell? Like, I was like, oh man, this dude is too wild. And he lived in Manhattan, and he actually got kicked out of his apartment because he was smoking all day and woke up to just a cloud of smoke and called the fire department. So I guess that's that same paranoia you're talking about. And when he lived downstairs from a restaurant, so when the restaurant had to be cleared out, they came in, kicked, and they was like, "This will never happen again because you will not be here any longer."
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a funny story, but it's real.
It's real, bro. It's real. These are people's realities. When you see someone that hasn't opened up to you about a problem, but you notice things, do you pull them aside?
I guess to each thing, it's different, but if I can, I will, but not blatantly. I just offer a glimmer of hope, and hopefully they catch on to the hint. You know, like it might be subtle, like, you know, you don't have to live this way. They might question that, and then that's when I can get more deep into the conversation. Or I might just say, "Hey, listen, I've been where you're at."
I was going to say that. Wow.
So, you know, you continue down this route, you have options. It's called jails, institutions, or death.
None of them really sound like a destination that I would like to visit anytime soon.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Well, you know, have you ever been locked up?
I came not locked up in jail, but I've been held in a couple of, what do you call these?
Holding?
Holding. Yes.
Bro, I have a quick.
Go ahead. I had a DWI when I was in the military.
Oh, dang.
And they put me in the holding, and my first sergeant had to come and pick me up. That was my first experience.
Listen, I was in holding one time. I was really pissed off. It was for something dumb. Theft of service. I was using a high school Metro card to take the train.
Get on the train.
So I did not know that in New York, they show what kind of Metro card you're using. And the police officer comes to me and says, "Excuse me, sir, what high school do you go to?" And I'm like, "I ain't in no damn high school." And he says, "Exactly," and just put the cuffs on me. I was like, "But wait, hold on. Let's talk about this." And it was embarrassing because he left me in the train station standing there for everyone to see for about an hour. But when he took me to holding, there were no seats. And they handcuffed me to the wall where it was, let's say, shoulder length. So you have two options to either stand for the whole time or sit down like you're hanging by your wrist. Sir, that is not very comfortable. I will not be locked up anytime again. That was more than enough experience for me.
Yeah, I've had a few more than that, but okay.
Wow.
We'll take that.
There you go. Listen, man, I just really want to tell you thank you for sharing your journey. And I think it's a journey of victory when you come from such low points to, hey, listen, everybody's high point is different. It doesn't have to be driving a Bentley, driving a Ferrari, living in a mansion. Victory can just be living a normal life. And
that's the truth. That's believe it or not, I sometimes shed tears just to wake up and go to work. And people wonder why I'm so happy about that. And what I basically tell them is, well, I go to work because that's the only place I know that pays me to go there. I agree. Simple. Everywhere else, you got to pay to get in. Yes. Bastards. But yeah, man, the simple things in life I've learned to really, really appreciate a lot. Well, I really appreciate do. And I have a lot of gratitude. Thanks. That means a lot to me. It really does. I appreciate you, man. Listen, you talked about very deep, dark secrets. A lot of people are not always willing to discuss those evils within themselves and how they've turned those evils into glorious things. And I just really want to say thank you for talking sweet with SweetBaby Jay. I'm honored. Thanks. Appreciate that. Bro, listen, man. The number is 669-241-1422. If you ever have anything you want to talk about, ever a moment, hit me up. We'll talk about it. If there's ever a story you want to share, something that you want to rethink on, rehash on, if you know anyone, give them a number. We're always here. I'm gonna keep that in mind, and I'm gonna try to share. I'm gonna try to share the love that you're giving out. There you go. Hey, stay great. You too, my brother. You too, my brother. All right. Have a good one. You too, brother. That's about it.